So, hey guys, we've had the Dark World support for a while now, so I'll give my opinion on it. So, first off, card destruction, of course, is always an insane card. There's a lot of usage for Dark World with, a lot of usage with card destruction in Dark World and Danger. So, for example, if I go ahead and card destruction and I have multiple copies of Brow or draw into Brow and I dump Ceruli, I generate more advantage than my hand had to begin with. So, pretty insane, of course, but my opponent as well will discard cards. And since they also discard, they can draw into more hand traps and such. So, normally that doesn't matter, but a lot of bestial names are being run, so that's rather annoying. If you haven't gotten the ball like rolling enough, giving your opponent like a few bestials, not like the best. And if they didn't have hand traps in their opening hand to begin with, and then you just gave them some, that's not great either. And if they're playing tier limit, this triggers all their tiers, and it triggers it in a really bad way. If they have any tier in their hand, then draw into any tier, or if they already had 2 tiers in hand, card destruction allows them to go into like Rukelos and potentially Kaleido Heart, which is definitely not ideal. But for just the Dark World cards, we have gotten Dark World Punishment, we have Dark World Puppetry, Dark World Archives, and Dark World Session. So out of all these new spell traps we have for Dark World, I think I'd have to say my favorite one is probably a Session. So a Session is probably the best one, I think, because you can like activate dangers or whatever and discard Dark World Session. Doesn't really matter how Dark World Session gets into the graveyard, honestly. This actually discards for effect, which allows you to trigger your Dark World monsters just continuously. So this has a nice little loop, even if you don't have targets in your extra deck to summon anymore. Speaking of targets in the extra deck that you can summon, let's go ahead and see if there are any. Let's see. This can only summon fusion monsters, and specifically fiends. So technically it should be able to summon like every single target here. Like, you can technically summon Plunder Patrol Lice if you have 2 Plunder Patrol monsters in your graveyard, as it does not specify, but does say only during the main phase. Fusion summon a Fiend Fusion monster from your extra deck. So, one of the pseudo bad things about this is if your opponent has evenly matched, or if you have to play around evenly. Like, let's say you have a Grappa in hand and you have not yet summoned your Fusion Grappa, then the play you'd want to do is to set your copy of a session so that you can activate Grappa's effect on your opponent's turn and pop a card, which is something people can kind of bait with like attempting to leave main phase. Not much you can do about that. That sucks. And let's see, continuing on. Is there anything generic enough that you can actually make? Just giving it a quick look, and let's see. What? Phantasm Emperor Trilojig. Let's see. This requires 3 level 10 monsters if this card is special summon, or if another monster is special summoned from the graveyard to your field while you control this monster, you can target one face-up monster your opponent controls, inflict damage to your opponent equal to half its original attack. You can only use this effect if Phantasm Emperor Trilojig once per turn. Yeah, that's not useful. But this doesn't require you to use Fiend monsters, right? Just banishing the materials mentioned on it from your field or graveyard. Okay. This is only Fiend, which kinda sucks for certain reasons, I guess. Let's see, anything else? Burger Trio. And then let's see, Dream Mirror. You can use it to summon that. 1 fiend, 1 rock monster. Dark Gaia. Must be special summoned with Dark Fusion, so you can't make this anyways. Wait for Chimera. It's a fiend, so you can make that interesting. And then Barracks. Yeah, so basically there are no really good targets for Dark World Accession, which is kind of a shame, but like maybe that changes in the future. By good targets, I mean like aside from Grapha. So I mean technically this is usable outside of Dark Worlds potentially, but not really. It's like kind of. So like let's say for example we have like a copy of any dark monster with like a Luber, normal summon a Luber, add theater, make masquerade using the 2 monsters, and then we could technically banish a Luber and the dark monster or light monster, I guess, with a session to make a second masquerade. Like that kind of thing is slightly interesting. And then of course as it happens, Thespian Tragedy actually triggers if it is sent to the graveyard by effect, which Dark World Ascension session does. So that would technically trigger it, and that's pretty interesting as well. So, I mean, you can't do any kind of play like that right now. It's only really usable in Dark World. And later on, I do know that we get one more fusion target for Dark World. It's like the Rainbow Fusion, I think. Rainbow the Colorless King or something. And that's pretty great because it will probably just make me feel less bad for making Grapha Dragon Overlord of Dark World. And that's something I could use, honestly. So, continuing on. We also have Genta, Gateman of Dark World. Genta is pretty great. So, what Genta does is it doesn't... it's not once per turn, Genta's effect to search. But Genta's effect to special summon itself is hard once per turn. So, you can only special summon Genta once per turn, not just by its effect, which is kind of weird, but it is what it is. So Genta is a really good level for making Dugaris, which goes really hard with Dark World. Draw 2, discard 1. That's like 3 cards basically, I'd say, net swing of 3 cards. The discard is beneficial, so I would say like in the same territory as like a +3 almost. Like for example, if we discarded Lucent, we can still add Lucent back to hand anyways. So like Lucent discard Lucent, special summon Lucent, Grapha return Lucent or whatever, and then we still have like the card we discarded back anyways. So the discard is not like super relevant. In fact, that technically gave us a free body almost in that example. So Genta is pretty nice in that way. And you can also, if you don't want to make Dugaris or you already have a way to make Dugaris, you can instead return Genta to the hand with like, for example, Grapha or Rainbow to search another copy of the Gates of Dark World. So the only thing that actually sucks about Genta specifically, though, is that Genta is not good into Colossus. Like, the majority of these cards were generally good against Colossus, or okay, or playable, right? But Snow was your only, like, search card. I guess now you also have Rainbow as well, which does a search. And this whole effect needs to resolve, right? Then if this card was discarded from your hand to your graveyard. So, for example, if we have Grapha's effect, right? Grapha's effect when it's discarded by an opponent's card effect. This will not happen if the normal effect does not resolve. And that applies to all Dark World cards, I believe. So, like, if they get banished in the graveyard, not even by, like, a cult buy, just displaced, basically, so that they can't be special summoned back, they can't do the other effect, because it happens in sequence. And then, for example, let's say, with Genta, you can't get Genta out of your hand if Colossus is on the field, which sucks. And, let's see. Yeah, I think that's actually the primary issue. Kind of the same thing with Rainbow. And Genta does not have a, if discarded by opponent's card effect or whatever. Or if this is discarded by your opponent's card effect, Genta doesn't have one of those, which is kind of a shame, really, but it is what it is. And then, let's see. Danger Mothman. Honestly, I have such mixed feelings about Danger Mothman. Mothman is good in general, right? But you don't want to give your opponent a discard in the current meta. It's just not really worth it. Draw one, discard one. This is like the worst right now. It's pretty bad. Like, I don't know how to put it. It's just, if your opponent, like, draws into a Bestial, it stops your looping, specifically. Well, it depends on the exact situation, because there's a bit of RNG involved. But, like, Mothman, you usually would prefer to hit something aside from itself, so you can special summon it to make Dugaris. Like, to an extent, I would even prefer, like, a Danger Thunderbird over playing Mothman if, like, I could, but I can't really. So then we have Danger Chupacabra as well. Danger Chupacabra kind of in the same territory, just by itself. If it hits itself, it can't bring itself back, which is also a shame, so you kind of need Chupacabra to not hit itself. So these two dangers kind of suck because it's, like, a bit of RNG. And it sucks especially knowing that it's generally in your favor that it doesn't hit itself. So let's see if we can pull out a hand with Chupacabra. Alright, so here we have Chupacabra. So if we activate Chupacabra, Chupacabra has a chance of hitting any of these 5 cards. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And there's only a 20% chance of it hitting itself in theory, right? But if it does hit itself, it's just a straight -1. Like, as if you activated E-Telly, and then your opponent just hit you with Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring. Except your opponent didn't hit you with Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, and you just went -1, you know what I'm saying? Well, whatever. Then we have, like, Danger Nessie here. If Danger Nessie just hits itself, you eventually get a body at least. It does use your danger effects up, which kind of sucks, but it is what it is. But once again, pivoting back and focusing more on the Dark World cards in particular. Dark World Puppetry is basically just a card they printed where it's like, huh. How about we just print an anti-tier card? Like, why not? Target up to 3 cards in any graveyards. Banish them, then discard 1 fiend monster. During your main phase, except the turn this card was sent to the graveyard, you can banish this card from your graveyard, then target one of your banished fiend monsters added to your hand. You can only activate 1 Dark World Puppetry per turn. So the effects on Dark World Puppetry kind of suck in different ways. So first off, target up to 3 cards in any graveyards, banish them. So Puppetry, yeah. This needs to resolve completely. So you target the cards, bash them, so if something gets displaced, then you don't get the discard. But you also need to be able to discard to activate Dark World Puppetry, which is kind of like suckish to an extent. There will be, like, times where you are playing this card for some reason, well, I mean, if you are playing this card, that you'll see that both of these things are very relevant in some cases. Then there's during your main phase, except the turn this card was sent to the graveyard, you can banish this card from your graveyard, then target one of your banished fiend monsters, add it to your hand. So this just adds any fiend monster that's banished, and of course this card can do the banishing if you want to, or you could banish with like the gate, and that works as well, and you can just add a fiend to your hand, any fiend, which is this effect, honestly, pretty nice if you just look at the effect and just ignore the fact that you can't do this on the turn this card was sent to the graveyard. Honestly, it should be able to do this the turn it is sent in the graveyard, unless there's some like interaction I am missing, because Darkwood Puppetry, if you accidentally discard it with like a danger, for example, it's really sad. But if you like if you like set it, it might not see any usage anyways. And it does specifically say that you have to have a fiend monster in hand, which, I mean, you probably do, but it's not like guaranteed either. So pretty dicey stuff. Dark World Dealings, you might honestly want to just cut this card down to like 0 copies. I don't think it's really playable right now, honestly. I've been testing it out. That doesn't really go that great. Trade-in, though, trade-in is actually pretty good. I'm not really sure what would be a good amount of trade-ins. It's like between 2 to 3 probably. So trade-in is pretty damn good, actually. So the fact that this sends for cost is like a blessing and a curse at the same time. So if it's sent for effect, first off, then you'd be able to trigger Grapha and Rainbow off of the discard, which is both a blessing and a curse. So with like Rainbow, it's strictly just better. With Grapha, sometimes you don't want to pop a card. Like essentially when you're going first and you give your opponent like a Ceruli, you'll be putting it in the extra, like right above the extra monster zone or a extra monster zone. So on EMZ, right? And if you want to like discard Grapha to return something to the hand, like one of your Dark World cards, this can do it without popping Ceruli, because you still want Ceruli to be on the field because you want to return it to the hand with Akashic Magician alongside whatever else you might be trying to return. So being able to discard for cost, not that bad. And Rainbow, you only need to resolve so many times. So after you've resolved like Rainbow maybe like once or twice, you can, like, let's say, for example, we have, I don't know, it doesn't really matter, Genta on the field. We can, like, Rainbow return Genta, Grapha return Rainbow, and then maybe we, I don't know, Genta effect to add, like, a copy of the Gates of Dark World, and then we can trade in Rainbow, and then Rainbow's back in the graveyard, so it can return whatever else we summon. Maybe, like, a Lucent or something. And that's perfectly fine. So what's pretty interesting here with the new support is we have Dark World Archives. So I have pretty mixed feelings on Archives as well as Punishment to an extent. But we'll go through Dark World Archives first. So Dark World Archives. The effect of Dark World Archives is during your main phase, you can discard one Dark World monster, and if you do, Dark World monsters you currently control gain attack equal to the level the discarded monster has in the hand times 100 until the end of this turn. So that like, most of this doesn't really matter. The thing you mostly care about most of the time is just that it discards a Dark World monster. And it has this other effect of, if a monster whose original type is Fiend is discarded from your hand by the effect of a Dark World card or an opponent's card effect, even during the damage step, you can discard one card, then draw 2 cards. So discard 1, then draw 2 is pretty good here, because you can do some triggers, and it's just draw 2. Nothing to cry about here. This is just Dugaris effect, really. And Dugaris effect, of course, is pretty crazy, but the fact that this can happen on your opponent's turn, and this can just happen over the course of the duel multiple times is pretty nice. And also worth mentioning is this is an optional effect and not a mandatory effect, which is also pretty great. So you don't have to worry about decking out from Dark World Archives. I'm not 100% sure how many copies of Archives to run. Probably between 1 to 2, depending on preference, I suppose. Either or is fine. And then, let's see. Dark World Punishment. So, Dark World Punishment is basically like a solemn judgment. When a monster would be normal or special summon, you negate the summon. And if you do, destroy that monster. Monsters then discard one fiend monster. If a Dark World monster you control would be destroyed by battle or an opponent's card effect, you can banish this card from your graveyard instead. You can only use each effect of Dark World Punishment once per turn. So after you activate Dark World Punishment, you can also use this to protect your Dark World monsters. So that effect is honestly completely useless. The only reason I would say that is because Muckraker exists, and Muckraker does the same thing. But like you can use Muckraker as many damn times as you want in a turn, which is actually kind of insane. If you notice, it says you can only use this effect of Muckraker from the Underworld once per turn. That is the effect to discard a card and special summon a fiend monster, I believe, right? Yeah. But the protection effect here, if monsters you control would be destroyed by battle or card effect, you attribute one fiend monster instead. And this is actually better because it's more generic. So let's say, for example, we have an Apolloso, we'd be able to like send like Ceruli, Snow, Lucent, whatever on our field to the graveyard to protect Apolloso so it can't be destroyed by battle. Even if you take multiple shots at Apo, you know? It's just not gonna happen. So that is pretty good. And that kind of is better than Dark World Punishment. And there will be times where you definitely activate Muckraker. You might have Muckraker on the end board. So I might even run 2 in a future build, of course. So let's see. The effect to like Solemn Judgment here is kind of like worse than actual Solemn Judgment for a few reasons, so we'll just go over that. So with all of these effects that say like then discard one fiend monster, there's kind of a timing issue with them. Obviously you don't want to like let them rip. Like you want to let your opponent play a little bit so you can gain more mileage from your cards. Like let's say I have Grapha in hand, right? And my opponent normal summons Moyi. Like I don't want them to like resolve Moyi effect, of course, right? But my optimal discard here will probably be Grapha. But the thing about activating Grapha's effect is that it's, well, not only just mandatory, but it's probably what I want to be sending. So if I sent it on normal summon Moyi, I wouldn't be able to pop anything with Grapha. So ideally I would want to wait. But like, if I let Moyi's effect resolve to summon the token, and then they go cheese out, I still don't have a good time to get mileage from the Grapha pop. So I'd have to wait to the point of like long one, probably long one special summon, and then I might be able to pop then. So that it's a little awkward in that sense, and you're kind of forced to hold these. And also worth mentioning is that if your opponent activates Polymerization to special summon a monster, you cannot negate that special summon. Solemn Judgment, though, would be able to negate the effect of a spell trap card, allowing you to negate like a Polymerization, for example, or in this case, we'll just say Branded Fusion. So Dark World Punishment can't stop Branded Fusion, and of course we cannot like Dark World Punishment on, like, let's say Lubellion is special summoned. We wouldn't be able to punishment that. And I believe if they special summon something off of Lubellion, I don't think we can Dark World Punishment that either. But I'm not 100% sure on that one. But let me think for a second. Yeah, I don't think we can. Can we? When a monster would be normal or special summon, you negate the summon. So this only works against inherent summons, I am pretty sure. And because of that, it's kind of awkward. But in some other cases, it's much better. Like, for example, if my opponent is playing Sprite, they normal summon something, special summon a guy, punishment, and we can get rid of both. Is what you would think. I guess. Let me see. Yeah, I guess that works. You can punishment, and then this has to discard a fiend monster, which can kind of suck. Like, let's say I only have Danger Nessie left in my hand for whatever reason. Then I can't activate it. Same kind of issue as Puppetry. These cards are, like, fun to play in the sense that they're totally usable, but they're not, like, as good as certain cards. And the only thing that's super interesting about them, or like that's really good about them with Dark World, is that they're at least searchable. Aside from like being searchable, I don't know, not much. Not much is going on here. But I guess what is cool is that you can, for example, like activate snow effect once, do a search, like I don't know, maybe we do search for a session, then we can make well, since Snow is in the graveyard now, we can make Muckraker and have Muckraker like special summon back Snow, special summon Rainbow or something, and then I don't know, you might put Rainbow back with Greffa as well, but then you can put Snow back in your hand and then search out like Dark World Puppetry as well, and then you're just doing strictly better, right? And you have some back row to back you up, and you don't just get completely cooked by Dark Ruler no more, and you still have some forms of interaction at least. So in that sense, they're not that bad, right? But the fact that they require a discard, it's both good and bad. Like, being able to discard a card, pretty good. But like, if the timing doesn't permit the card that you have in hand that you want to discard to like really pop off, it's kind of a shame. The best combo, I think, is usually having like Ceruli with something else in hand so that you can like discard twice, kind of. And the second card will have a more potent effect. I think that is my favorite way to resolve this kind of effect, I guess. So like, for example, Ceruli discard Rainbow or Lucent, and then I will special summon Ceruli again to loop a card out of my opponent's hand. That is one of my favorite ways to resolve like either punishment or puppetry. And one of the annoying things about like Dark World in general though is how long it takes to resolve your turn. It just takes a hot minute. So I guess that's also worth mentioning. It is kind of jank as well that we have all these copies of the Gates of Dark World that we're running, and all these copies of Genta simply because they're relatively so good that you're forced to run max copies, and this can result in getting bricked by the Gates of Dark World or Genta to some extent, which is not that great. And I am running the original classic Rainbow at 1, just because I find it funny. I'm like thinking about cutting it at this point because I somehow magically always open Rainbow. Like, it's crazy. Like, I like you, Rainbow, but not that much. Come on. So, also worth mentioning is Drag Down into the Grave, I suppose. Drag Down into the Grave. Both players reveal their hands, each chooses one card from their opponent's hand, then you discard the chosen cards from both players' hands, then both players draw one card. So this card is moderately better than Dark World Dealing. So, for example, I can have, let's say I have Lucent in hand, Snow in hand, and then Cerulean hand, and I don't really care too much about which one gets discarded, of course. And I can say, like, let's say I have a trade-in as well, actually, alright? So I can set trade-in, and then just activate Drag Down into the Grave, see what my opponent's cooking, what they're playing, and prepare my extra deck, prepare my end board accordingly. And I also have, well, with that information, I'm doing better, and knowing what's in my opponent's hand allows me to prepare for that as well. So let's say they have, like, I don't know, a Bestial or something in Branded Fusion. Or actually, no, they have like a Branded Opening and a Branded Fusion. I know 100% that I can ignore their like Branded Opening, and that they have a Branded Fusion, so I don't have to bother negating like a Looper. I can save my like negate for Branded Fusion and stuff like that. Or like if they have a problematic card for me, like for example, a copy of, let's say, Evenly Matched, or like Dark Ruler No More, Forbidden Droplet, whatever, I can just force them to discard it. And their only choice will be to make me discard Cerule, which is obviously a bad choice, knowing that I have both Snow and Lucent. And you don't really want me triggering those effects, I promise you. And then Snow, which is just kind of a search, not that great, so they'd be forced to probably make me discard Lucent there, which is still pretty fine for me, because I special summon Lucent, and I can like return Lucent to hand with like either Greffa or Rainbow, and then like continue on with my day, whatever. And I'm doing pretty fine in that regard as well, and I'm thinking of removing Coach Gang Giant Trainer soon as well. Haven't gotten around to it. But in general, this deck is also kind of weird, because, like, I have, like, conflicted feelings about milling cards, because milling in general is good, because you can, like, get your copy of Greffa, Rainbow, or Darkworld's Accession into the graveyard, and they'll be good for, like, later, or you can just make Greffa Dragon Overlord, like, as soon as Darkworld Accession gets sent to the graveyard, which is pretty cool. But if you're doing like a Max E challenge, if you mill card destruction, there's a chance you'd lose if you mill card destruction actually, and it's purely because of time, because of how long it takes to actually summon like 40, 60, however many times. Well, like depending on how many cards your opponent's playing, I don't know. Well, actually not 40, it's like 35 and 55, but it still takes a long while, so simply being able to card destruction for game, like, in half the time, you know, with half the summons is pretty valuable. So, pretty conflicted on that, I guess. But, as it happens, I'm still playing the Zombie Vampire, and I've set, like, that is the only, like, milling I do. And I've hit card destruction, like, 5 times off of the Zombie Vampire. So I'm kind of traumatized by that a little bit. But of course, hitting a session is pretty great as well. And you can also, like, off of the Zombie Vampire, if you mill, like, a Snow, you can special summon the Snow to your field and then return it with, like, Rainbow Greffa, which is pretty good as well. So, that's pretty cool, I guess. Danger Bigfoot, I guess? I don't know. Mixed feelings on this. No real comment. The beginning of the end. This card is pretty crazy. Honestly, you don't super care about any of the dark monsters in your graveyard. You can banish, like, all of them. The only ones you care about are Greffa and Rainbow, because they can, like, help you cycle stuff. But, beginning of the end, you just draw 3. This is literally better than Pot of Greed. It just requires you to have 7 or more dark monsters in your graveyard, banish 5, so this condition is not super hard to meet in, like, Danger Dark World, for example. But, it does have a small amount of downsides to it, being that, if you open this at the start and it kind of hinders your play, you kind of want to more so draw into the beginning of the end than to open it. Opening one copy is not super bad. You can set it if you want to be greedy, or you can keep trying to like hit it with maybe a danger to cycle into the next one later. And of course, like, you can Saryuja it back later as well, potentially. Or you can, like, Saryuja to dig a bit. One of the cards I do find especially interesting is Akashic Magician, though. Both effects are fairly useful. This is better than the Zombie Vampire in terms of the mill it does, so. You can only link summon Akashic Magicians once per turn. If this card is link summoned, return all monsters this card points to the hand. Once per turn, you can declare one card, name excavate cards from the top of your deck equal to the total link rating of the link monsters co-linked to this card. Then if you excavated any copies of the declared card, add them to your hand. Also send the remaining cards to the graveyard. So this is pretty crazy because you can, like, let's say I have Ceruli and then I have, I don't know, Lucent or something, and then we can return Lucent with Grappa or something, and then we can, using like 2 Fiends, so like, I don't know, do Garrus and then Grappa, and then let's say we have a danger in the other EMZ, like the zone right below the EMZ actually, that's what I mean. Then we can return, like, for example, Ceruli and then danger Nessie, and then put Grappa back in the graveyard, and we can get Dugaris off our board at the same time, so Akashic is really good for that. And then you can also go ahead and then later you can, let's say you actually happen to have enough bodies, you can put Saryuja directly below Akashic and do all your Saryuja effects. Saryuja's arrows don't, like, super matter. So then you can Saryuja effect, do all your Saryuja effects, and then since it's co-linked with Akashic Magician, you can go ahead and excavate 4 cards, which is essentially mill 4, like kind of like a Chaos Ruler, but this is a little different in that you can declare whatever card you want to try to add to your hand. So in my case, a lot of the times I'll be declaring like a card destruction because I don't want to necessarily mill card destruction, and I prefer to add it to my hand. So declare card destruction and then add, and then we can add it to our hand if it's one of the few cards on top. If not, I can keep digging for like card destruction, like using my dangers and stuff, I guess. Like Gates digs a little bit, trade in, just keep digging for my copies of whatever card I need at any given time, I guess. Also, I think I forgot to mention this, but of course if you mill Dark World Accession has the effect to add this card to your hand by discarding a Dark World monster. It is not just any card, which is, well, that kind of sucks in a sort of way, but it makes perfect sense. So with Dark World Accession, you can trigger the Dark World Monsters effect whenever you want, of course. And of course, if it is like milled or like kind of like Foolish Burial Goods, I guess, like if you foolish it, then you can add it to hand pretty easily as well, which is a nice quality of this card. So for example, if I make Curious, I can send Dark World Accession, which is pretty nice. So Curious is definitely a card that's like worth consideration. Like, playing it doesn't sound that bad. And while we're at it, let's throw in one more card here. Another card that's worth playing is Hita the Fire Charmer, because everyone's playing Ash Blossom and Joe Spring. Like, so maybe instead of Dahark, if you're feeling it, you can do Hita, because your opponent like Ash Blossoms you, then this helps you link climb a little bit. And sometimes it's relevant, sometimes it's not, whatever. And let's see, what can we make, I guess? I guess that allows us to climb into Unicorn. Or like, yeah, it's mostly just for Unicorn, I guess. I don't remember what I used this for, but I think I did use this for something in my Danger Dark World list. Like, pre-support. I don't remember exactly what it was that I was doing. Let me think. What was it? Hmm. Yeah, I don't quite remember actually. I think there was some reason, but it really just doesn't come to mind right now. Well, I mean, if I figure it out one of these days, I guess I'll tell you guys. So, what I really like about, one of the things I really like about this new support is that now you can just play Dark World by itself. And just for proof of concept, I'll real quick go ahead and leave here for a second. Oh, we're at the maximum amount of decks. Actually, wait. Yeah, this is a copy, actually, of a different list. So we can kind of butcher it. Alright, let's go ahead and do that real quick. So let's just murder basically every single non-Dark World card. And the new support as well. So all of those gone. All of these gone for now, and then we'll bump this up to 3. We can keep beginning at the end or not, it doesn't really matter. Card destruction. We'll just keep card destruction for the sake of it. And then these gone. And then this gone. This. Okay, and then terraforming is banned, so no terraforming. Okay. And then we simply go to related cards of Griffa. And I guess we still have Drag down into the grave, which is fine. Then let's go ahead and take a look. We want maxed out copies of Brow. Beage is definitely worth consideration. I won't fix the extra deck just yet. We don't really have any other avenues or ways to go into Dugaris without Beage. And then Brawn, that's pretty bad. Don't really want to be running Brawn. And just for the sake of it, let's change it to unlimited because we would run Silva just because it's a body anyways, regardless of the hand looping functionality. Silva was just good. And then we have Dark World Lightning. This is a normal spell. This is any set card on the field, which is weird though. So like, that works against flip decks, I guess. And then we have Charge into a Dark World. I guess we just have to play that. Like, there's no way really around this. And actually, now that I'm thinking about it, beginning of the end's probably not doable because I don't think we can cycle through or, like, get these cards into the graveyard without card destruction. So it's really just praying to, like, resolve card destruction. So then we also have the Forces of Darkness. Target 2 Darkwood monsters in your graveyard. Add those targets to your hand. Already struggling to get them into the graveyard to begin with. Then we have, let's see, Gateway to Dark World. Target 1 Dark World monster in your graveyard. Special summon that target. You are not summon monsters the turn you activate this card except by this effect, but you a normal set. So the only target we have for that would be like maybe Cerulean, I guess. So not the best. Dark World Grimoire. During your end phase, if you discard a monsters to the graveyard because you had more cards than your hand size limit, you can target one of those monsters, special summon that target. Yeah, this isn't really going to work out that well. But once again, best target is Cerulean. Cerulean triggers off of being special summoned off of any Dark World card. So that's great, I guess. And yep, not much to do. Let's see, Gateway to the Dark World. Dark World Brainwashing. When your opponent activates a monster effect, if you have 3 or more cards in your hand, so during the damage step, you can target 1 Dark World monster on the field, return to the hand, and if you the activated effect becomes your opponent randomly discards a card. This is random, which kind of sucks, but you don't have much else. And let's see, is this even once per turn? No. So I guess we want to run Brainwashing at 3, because it's all we have going. And there's not much else. the Forces of Darkness. I'm not sure we really need that, but whatever. And let's finish this off by putting in 3 more cards, I guess. Well, let's take out Rainbow, I guess. So Lucent, Silva, and these are all like the best Dark World monsters we have, unironically, I think, right? Yeah. So I guess let's do 2 copies of Gateway. And then a copy of Lightning or 2, I guess. We don't have that many targets. We could increase our drag down into the grave, but whatever. So, this can generate just completely unplayable hands, like this one. Dark World Dealings, drag down into the grave. Gateway to the Dark World. Dark World Dealings. This is actually somehow one of the somewhat better hands. So, here we can at least do Dealing, discarding Ceruli, send Grapha, Grapha pops Ceruli, and then next turn we can activate Gateway to Dark World, or we can activate it this turn actually to special summon back Ceruli to force our opponent to discard a card, and of course Grapha special summons a monster potentially. So the effect, if Grapha is discarded by your opponent's card effect, then if this card was yours, okay. By opponent's card effect, look at 1 random card in your opponent's hand, then if it was a monster, you can special summon it to your field. Yeah, that's a bit RNG, but if it happens, generally good. So, if it happens, and let's just look at our next 2. We have Snow and the Gates of Dark World. Well, that's great. Except, I mean, we can technically force our opponent to discard Snow for us. And then we have a copy of Gates. So we can add any of these Dark World cards off of Snow. If we add Brainwashing, it doesn't really do much for us here, actually. So if we had that 1 trap that adds 2 like Dark World monsters, that would be good with Brainwashing here. Except we don't magically have the ability to pull a card out of our ass. So then I guess banish like Ceruli, and then like Snow. Discard Snow, draw 1. Silva, and then I don't know what we even add. But, like, it's pretty bad. Nothing interacts with our opponent. We could try Dealing again. If we do that, we at least end on a single Silva. That's kind of where this goes. Like, this is what pure Dark World looked like before. So it's completely, like, so much better with the inclusion of Genta. Like, first off, we don't have to rely on Dark World Dealings as much. Dark World Dealings, I think, is just a worse card than the Gates of Dark World, in the sense that you're giving your opponent a draw and a discard as well. So this is obviously not good in the mirror, which does come up, I guess. And if we have Silva in hand, and then we can add a card, what would we even add? Maybe like, since we haven't normal summoned, I guess the play would be like set Silva on top of Ceruli, adding another copy of Gateway to special summon Ceruli again to hand loop our opponent a little bit. Yeah, that doesn't sound the best, but I really could not come up with a better plan here. Not a better plan of action, at least. And we're also locked out of special summoning monsters from Gateway to Dark World. So we can't return, like, Ceruli. Which sucks, because if we could have returned Ceruli, we could have done some hand looping with Ceruli Silva. Which I guess we can't do anymore. Okay, then let's see. Charge into the Dark World, drag down into Grave, Ceruli, Gateway to Dark World, and then Snow. Well, now we can set all of these cards and then activate drag down, but then like our opponent can just discard Snow for us, and then we don't really have much we can do, and we also draw 1. So Brow. Let's say we add Gateway, banish Snow, discard Brow, draw 2. So now we have brainwashing. Yeah, not great. And we have no cards in hand either because we had to set charge and gateway. So we do have gold and Cerulean. So we would have added gate to banish, so I think the target was snow. So we can like bring back we can special summon Brow, I guess. And discard Cerulean, and then we can activate like well, discard gold, activate gold. Yeah, this doesn't do much. Yeah. And of course, we can't really go second with this because it's like super vulnerable. So, oh, now we have the Gates of Darkworld. So, an issue with Gates of Darkworld is we can't actually activate the effect of the Gates of Darkworld. As you can see here, we don't have a Fiend in the graveyard because we have no way to get a Fiend into the graveyard. Like a Fiend of any kind. So, this hand is actually completely dead. And this is what the majority of your hands will look like. And there's just nothing you can really do about it, as this is pure Dark World before the support. But like with the support, it changes a whole lot. You have more ways to get stuff into the graveyard. You have stuff you can do without getting, well, without requiring stuff in the graveyard. Like you have Dark World Accession, which helps. You have Dark World Archives, which helps as well to get you like started. Like one of the main things about going like pure like this is that getting started is actually a pretty big issue. Like with this, we only have drag down into the grave. Let's say we set charge. Of course, the draw happens after. So discard, then draw. So your opponent would discard like, I don't know, one of these three for you. And obviously the correct choice is always to pick Beach here. So you're gonna expect this to be the one they discard. And now this is on the field, and you have no way to get it off the field unless you like special summon something from your extra deck. And I mean, you don't really want to normal summon Snow and then summon Dugaris either, because you want the Snow Search in general. So that kind of sucks. And you can't activate charge into a Dark World because Beach is not in the graveyard, so you don't have a target for charge. And let's dig a few more. We would have Dark World Lightning, which is not usable. We have the Gates of Dark World, which is not usable until I get like Beach into the graveyard, I guess. And then maybe we discard Lucin and stuff, and we get Silva. And these are all just vanillas on the field. The best you can do is maybe like hit Cerulean and then hit like Silva, and then make your opponent put 2 back on the bottom of their deck from the hand. So like more or less shuffle 2 back from their hand. I mean, aside from that, there's not a whole lot you can do. In pure, at least. But the fact that it is playable just kind of made my day when the support released. So I just want to talk about that a little, and yeah. That's about all I've got for you guys today, and I'll be seeing you guys in the next video. Bye.